All right. We should call the meeting to order. Let me see. Okay.
Linda?
All right. So the participants call to order. Brian Allen.
Here.
Ralph Croy. Scott is not here, and Sid Gold is here. So 3 here, 1 absent. We have a quorum of the meeting. Okay.
Indirectly.
What do you mean indirectly?
Well, I can't see you and you can't see me.
That doesn't matter. Okay. As long as we hear each other, we're okay. Someone knocked on my camera at a meeting, was telling. Okay. Now let me get to.
I can see Alan. Oh, Alan's camera is working. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to go to the agenda here. And
there is no public, so you don't have to worry about that.
Okay, and I'm going to share my screen here. So you should be able to see the agenda there. You see the agenda?
There it is.
Yes, I can.
Okay.
How come I can see the agenda, not you?
Because you has access to that, but not to my screen. It's a different thing.
It's a different feed.
Okay, I'm not a. Okay. This is going to be 1 minute, okay?
I'll give you a minute while I go get a drink.
All right. I just wanted to get the first one has to do with Council File 21-0407, which is a resolution put forward by Monica Rodriguez, who is in District 7. And then it was seconded by Nuri Martinez, who's from the 6th District, and who's also the pro tem. And there's a bunch of whereases, but I'll just read the resolution. Be it resolved with the concurrence of the mayor that by the adoption of the resolution, the city of Los Angeles hereby includes in its 2021-2022 state and federal legislative program. Oh, wrong one. Excuse me. Different one. Excuse me. Wrong.
You say that didn't sound right.
I know. Excuse me. This is also by Monica Rodriguez, but this is signed by Gil Cedillo. Okay. I therefore move that the Department of Neighborhood Empowerment be instructed to report with a survey of neighborhood council election rules with an analysis of how the bylaws of different neighborhood councils vary on election issues, including but not limited to eligibility requirements for board seats, governing board structure, stakeholder requirements, and stakeholder verification. I further move that the city attorney be requested to report on the city council's authority to standardize election rules across neighborhood councils and potential limits in this authority. I further move that the city clerk be directed to report on the costs associated with administrating the existing non-standardized neighborhood council election systems and provide recommendations for streamlining neighborhood council elections and potential cost savings that could result from standardizing neighborhood council elections. Okay. All right, any thoughts? Raise your hand. Okay, that way if you want to make a comment, I'll recognize you. But so I assume your hand is raised, Ralph. Make a comment. Go on.
Can you see this?
Now raised? I see your hand. I see it. So go ahead. Talk.
I pushed the button that says lower hand. Okay. So now I have a blue hand sitting up, but you can see it.
I see you, Ralph. Start. Okay.
Okay, it looks like the city is trying to standardize us, and now we're losing our individual neighborhood council. If we're all gonna have the same rules, everything else, and we started out as individuals, and now we're
Yeah, but,
being grouped.
okay. And what's
I
your
don't know if
comment?
that's good or bad.
Are you against it or for? What do you think?
I'm somewhat against it because we
So give
lose
me your
our
reasons why you're
individual
against it. Okay.
Well, we're losing our individual characteristics, our individual neighborhood.
And why is that bad? I'm just trying to give you what they're arguing, why she introduced this legislation in the first place.
Well, if everybody's the same, one person could vote for all of us, couldn't they? I mean, I'm getting down to the narrow part of it, but by being individuals, we look at different aspects of what's going on. And it then gives us inclusion. That's a key word, isn't it?
Maybe a word, but if we're going to write a council file, what are you going to put in this council file? Okay, that's what I want to know. Let Brian have a chance here. Brian?
Yeah, the problem, the first issue is this is just a request to get for Dunn and for the city clerk and for the council, for everybody to weigh in on what it would take to standardize. The ideas of how to get it standardized. Now, that doesn't change anything. So what she's asked to do is just gather information. Do I think that's a good thing? Yes, I think that's a good thing to get information. Do I think that that could be dangerous? Yeah, I also think it could be dangerous because we don't know the motivation behind it. What we think the motivation is that she feels that, and this has been discussed quite a bit, she feels that there have been people who have been disenfranchised. However, I don't think she's looked through this far enough, because if they went down this road of standardization, it's more than likely, because of the way her whereases and her lead up to it, it's more than likely that what's going to happen is the design of having undocumented, etc., and individuals able to vote in multiple areas would be eliminated, because you can't standardize in a community without changing the opportunity that those people have to vote in other areas, or people vote that aren't even authorized to vote. Now, we currently have a system that breaks federal law. We're not supposed to break federal law, but we are breaking federal law because we're allowing undocumented people to vote. Now, I realize that there are people in government that think that's a good thing. I don't personally think that's a good thing. I think that a country should be run by its citizens, not by the community that surrounds the country. And unfortunately, that is what is happening today when you allow for non-citizens to vote in any election. I don't care what it is. So if the neighborhood council system is an important aspect of the government, then it should not allow undocumented people to vote, and that is what she was concerned with. So I don't think we have much to say about it other than to voice our opinion on what we would like to see if it was done. But that's not what's being requested here. They're asking to tell them how it can be done, not to identify any specific process. So we're jumping to conclusions when we say it's going to take our individuality away. We don't know that. It's a possibility, but we don't know that because we don't know what the plan is. No, one has not been designed.
Ralph, you got your hand up. You got something else to say?
Oh. There, I took it down.
Well, I think all the whereases are spurious, okay? It's a political statement that's much like the unconscious bias training that we had, that
It's
they made certain
definitely
statements
biased.
as fact. No, like
Yeah.
this fact right here. I'll read the last whereas. As voter suppression efforts take root across the United States, okay, there's a spurious thing. It is even more important that the city of Los Angeles reconfirm our commitment to voter rights. So what voter rights are we talking about here? With an analysis of how the bylaws of different neighborhood councils vary on election issues, including but not limited to eligibility requirements for board seats, governing board structure, stakeholder requirements, and stake. So she's using a false premise to make an argument. Okay.
Correct.
And so I think just on the face of that, it's a reason not to accept this motion. She could have said other things about why we should do it. But the goal, if that's their goal here, then that she actually believes there's voter suppression going on. The voter suppression is that you need IDs. The first whereas she says that IDs are costly and they're hard to come by. And
That's a tired argument.
Of course, it's another spurious argument. Okay. All the arguments basing this are based on a political belief about voter suppression. So I think I don't have a good response, but I'm just thinking our response is that this whole motion should be rewritten to bring in, based on what are the goals of this. If the goals are, whereas is that this is not an acceptable reason to go ahead.
You know, sorry to break in, but my position on this would be, and I get very angry with people who use concepts against other people, and I would take this document and I would make the case that it is a biased document, and we should not be engaging in any biased document. We should force it to be rewritten in an unbiased manner. Now, nobody can argue with that.
I'll second that.
Okay, so what we're saying is the genesis of this document is based on a bias, and okay.
Use their things against them.
And that the whole document should be rewritten in a unbiased fashion. How would you want it to be stated?
It should be written unbiasedly.
Unbiasedly. Okay.
I'll second that.
Okay, a second. Okay. No, I think that's something we could put in. That what this from looking at this document is just full of falsehoods.
Yeah,
as a premise.
we should pick those out. Pick 2 or 3 positions of bias out and explain it.
Okay, I can make whereas the world is flat, we should put a wall at the end of the world so we don't fall off. That's my whereas.
Yeah, there you go.
It may be incorrect, but it's a whereas. All these whereases are incorrect.
That's the way you feel, see? And that's a biased position.
I don't think it's biased. She's making statements and it's hard to get identification cards.
Well, she's making a statement that there's voter suppression.
Yes, there's another.
But wait a minute, hold on. You're saying that she's making a statement, but a statement is only as good as its honesty, and it is not true that ID cards are difficult or expensive to get. It is not true.
And it's not true that voter suppression is rampant in the country.
Correct. It is not true.
It's based on not only biased, but unsubstantiated. How's that?
Unsubstantiated claims, correct.
Okay. All right.
Anybody that defends that position would be guilty of bias. They don't have a choice.
Okay. All right, so we're gonna send it back, rewrite it, and come back with another document that's unbiased and substantiated evidence, okay?
Yeah.
Okay,
Vote.
so the next one has to do with the discussion of possible action regarding return to in-person meetings. And
You know, that's a very difficult situation. Um, that's already been identified. I don't think it's been done well, but it's been identified, and decisions have already been made. Whether or not they're going to fly or not, nobody knows. And the cost to do this has been improperly, in my opinion, improperly analyzed. Um, my
so,
biggest concern on this is the fact that if you maintain the environment that we're in today, which is we have Zoom meetings, which are webinars, not Zoom meetings. We have limitations on the communication of the public with the councils. Uh, we end up with a disenfranchising of all the community, not just in voting, but in communication. And it is completely opposite the purpose of the NC. The purpose of the NC is to communicate with the public and discuss issues with them, get their opinions and pass their opinions on, and share with them what we know from the city so they're aware of what's going on. That is not possible with unless we go to in-person meetings or a hybrid meeting that is going to bring people in, and it will not bring people to the agenda to the meetings if they are not able to communicate. So the whole idea here of going back to in-person meetings has been eliminated for the moment simply because everybody is scared. And they're scared because there is way too much crime, there's way too much concern for safety, and nobody wants to put themselves in that position. So I think this whole thing, I don't think we can do anything here. I think we have to wait until a document is prepared and shown to us of what they actually are going to do, not ideas of what they're going to do. Just my
well,
opinion.
okay. Ralph, any thoughts? You raise your hand.
Well, I agree. What Alan is saying is the city should say, okay, these are the boundaries. These are what we need to do. We can make all sorts of ideas and suggestions, but I know how far that'll go. I think there has to be a conversation between the city and the neighborhood councils to resolve where we are.
Yeah, okay.
The key word there is conversation, not comment.
So I'm just listening to what you gentlemen have said, and I think we can make statements of what any final should include. Okay, I think certain parameters that in-person meetings should be secure and protected. Okay, that hybrid meetings should be open to the public and allow the opportunity for discussion similar to what's going on at an in-person meeting. I think we can make that should be included in the final document. That would satisfy. You know, Karen is I've heard her mention once or twice her fear of going back to meetings that are concerns, and I've heard other people express. So there's a lot of anxiety. I think we're living in a culture of fear. We're afraid to do anything, and it's goes out there. Ralph, what do you got to say?
Yeah, I mean, what you're saying is, are we going to ask for let's say a policeman or a security person to be our place? We definitely want to say, we definitely don't want to say, well, we should come there armed. I mean, that'll go against everything.
I think we're talking in generalities. We want a plan that provides safety. We're not telling them how to provide it. We're asking they're going to have to come back. This is going to be our safety plan. Okay,
we need a safe meeting. Yes.
Okay.
You know, a lot of this is happening because you've got people like the puppet guy, and uh, there's a guy at Van Nuys that makes a scene wherever he's on a meeting. But they're concerned because they have these loudmouths that want to yell and scream and use foul language. But there is no evidence that I've seen, and I've been around the entire city, there is no evidence that people are willing to go to a neighborhood council meeting or a city council meeting or a board of supervisors meeting or a police commission meeting and actually become violent. It just doesn't happen. And I just don't understand the panic that's in society right now. And I think if we're going to be a truly honest society, we're going to have to allow ourselves to trust in humanity. And the fact is, somebody somewhere sometime's going to get hurt. I got it. But we can't all live our lives in total fear, and we don't have the money to protect us. There's no way that any council is going to do anything other than spend money on security if this is the way they go. So I think we got to get back to reality.
Well, I have to be, I go to a number of meetings and I hear the concerns from a lot of neighborhood councils about the quorum. We've not had problems that I do recall in our meeting too much. That we've had disagreements, but nothing of extreme nature. But apparently in other neighborhood councils, there's been a little more interactions than we have. But so there.
Yeah, but Sid, that's because of Goat Puppet and the people that are willing to be disruptive. And the Brown Act allows for disruption to be shut down. Communication is not to be shut down. They can say what they want, they can use foul language, but they cannot disrupt. And when it becomes a point of disruption, they can be shut off. They can be eliminated from the meeting. You terminate somebody from a Zoom meeting, they are gone. They don't get back in. So I think we're
So
just
what would
not,
you like to say? How would you like to put that into words? Ralph, do you have a comment?
Well, there are no guarantees no matter what you do. So we know that. And getting together in a group has its risks, but that's what the country was based on. People had to risk to even make it a country. And somehow we're going to have to put up with some of this stuff, one way or the other.
well, Sid, you know that both of you know that when we were young, it was the last thing that we would ever think would happen to have a cop shot on the street, or to have a child die when he's in school. All right, we never thought about those things. We never envisioned that it could happen. So we know that we have a more violent society. We don't know. We're not willing to admit why, and in my opinion, the reason is we don't enforce rules. We don't enforce laws. And I could rattle off 100 laws, 100 rules that are being broken constantly, and nobody is addressing them. So,
well, we're getting to the point where our judiciary isn't supporting us.
Well, exactly. And
I want to get back to what we want to say. I've sort of come up with a term. It's called prosecutory nullification. You have jury nullification. Now we have prosecutors who nullify the law. So, but that's not either here or there. The issue is, how do we want to have us come back to work as the neighborhood councils? And I think Brian's points about ensuring appropriate communications, be it hybrid or direct meetings, and that I think my point of ensuring safety. I'm not saying how to do it, but I just say that that would address a lot of the people's concerns that if they came up with a plan. And I think we could put that into what we would see included in any sort of action. So,
well, we're getting back into what I was commenting on, is the courts aren't doing the job. A judge could rule if a prosecuting attorney isn't doing their job. He could Tell me,
I don't know if you can. But let's get back to doesn't have to do with how are we going to come back. I can't predict how a judge is going to be. Do we want to make any comments on this, or do we want to say this is what we'd like to be included in the return to work or return to the normal meeting or not? So that's what I want to hear from the committee.
Well, my opinion is that the NC system needs to address this as a system, as the NC system. In other words, the NCs, maybe by region, get together and communicate their thoughts by region. You know, we've got 8 NCs in our region. Each NC region should communicate, and then my opinion is they should have representatives meet to take the entire system and have the entire NC system suggest how they want to proceed. Anything other than that, and you're taking the idea of a few people, a handful of people, and having them decide for 1,500 people and 99 NCs, and I don't think that's appropriate. I think the NC system, on an issue like this, it's an NC system-wide issue. It's not an NC by NC issue, it's a system-wide issue. And the NC system of NCs should communicate within themselves to find an answer that they would like to live with. I think that's the only appropriate way to do this, in my opinion. You've got Lank, and Lank isn't doing it.
Well, if we ever get around to my Bill of Rights, that's one of the rights that I think the neighborhood council should have, is that before anything is done, there has to be a majority of the neighborhood councils agreeing to it. So that's.
I agree with you.
So anyway, we're not at that stage yet.
So I don't know how to.
So we could say.
Well,
Ralph,
we
did
could
you
be
want to
at
say
that
something?
stage.
I'm sorry, you got your hand up. Anything you want to say?
We could be at that. We could put a proposal on for the next meeting of the Granada Hills Mayor Council that we wish to establish a Bill of Rights for the council.
No,
we've done that.
We're having a special meeting in January to discuss it.
Okay.
And I put it off because there were so many issues that I put in there. I thought it would take up a whole meeting or more than a meeting. So
let me try this, Sid. Why don't we suggest that we establish, we attempt to establish a meeting of NCs to discuss this issue. So we would start with Region 2 and ask for 1 or 2 representatives from each NC, or all of them. I don't know if we want to control that, but have a number of individuals from each NC represent their own NC and discuss this issue. That would be a first step for me.
Okay, so that would be your recommendation.
Yes.
Okay. Ralph?
Well, there's one way to do it. You say, all right, all the NCs under, let's say, Council District 12, have it, let's say, run by, let's say, Council 12, as far as a person familiar with Robert's rules, and we have a general meeting that way. In that there would be an oversight to make sure we follow the quorum and the rules, etc., so we don't have yelling, screaming, etc. And it would be let's say a council officer that would keep the decorum.
I wouldn't default to the council district. I would keep it within Region 2 and the NCs themselves. Let the
What do you mean by
NCs
region two?
say what?
What do you mean by region two?
Region 2 is 8 NCs.
in the North
Every
Valley.
region, there are 15 regions, right? And these regions uh, are the way these NCs initially communicate or should communicate.
Well, in the region that I'm speaking of, isn't that all in Council District 12? I'm missing something?
Region 2 is in Council District 12, but it's not the only things in Council District 12.
Oh,
So I have an idea that we recommend that Dunn actively facilitate the ability of the neighborhood councils to convene a meeting to discuss and make recommendations regarding returning to hybrid situations, whatever.
They think they've already done that, and quite frankly, I don't think Dunn. I don't think Dunn has all of our best interests.
I understand,
It,
but
may
they
I
have
make
the
a
money and they have the
may I make a
ability.
comment?
well, they don't have the money. They really don't have money. They're strapped. They don't have personnel. The new people they have are not going to be effective for some time, and they're not full yet. Uh, I still want to maintain that the
So
NCs
the question I
themselves.
have for you is, how are you going to bring this about? How are we going to get neighborhood councils together?
We would have, if we got an agreement on RNC to attempt to establish a Region 2 meeting of members of every NC to discuss this issue, that is the start. If we agree to that, then we can go to these other NCs and see if they will participate.
So you're saying Granada Hills North Neighborhood Council actively facilitate the meeting of all the neighborhood councils within Region 2 to discuss
This
deal.
issue.
Yeah.
That's
Is
what I'm
that how you want to
suggesting.
put it? Something like that?
That's exactly what I want to do.
Okay.
I mean, that's what I would do. But
Okay. Ralph, what do you think?
Well, first of all, let me make a comment that was driven into me by my debating instructor. He said, you're supposed to be an educated people and you never admit in public that you don't think. You would say, it is my considered opinion, it is my belief, etc., etc. But don't tell somebody in public that you don't think, because the gathering is to think about something. Anyhow, that's an off comment, but we have to be careful how we speak and how we come across.
Ralph, it's semantics, and I'm not
You're right.
concerned. I'm not concerned about the semantics of the situation. I'm only concerned about
I understand
the
that.
idea of getting communication established. That's all.
I just want to improve what you're saying or how you say it.
So how would you improve it? I'm not sure what you're saying, Ralph.
Well, I mean, when you want to say, you don't say, I don't think. You say, it is my belief. It is my conjecture.
I want to go back to the concept of what our resolution is going to be. The resolution is Granada Hills North actively participate in to convene a meeting of all the neighborhood councils within Region 2 to discuss this bill. There's no thinking in this resolution, so I don't understand.
I believe that it should be conducted and administered by Dunn to make sure it's done in proper decorum.
See,
within their realm.
I don't think Brian agrees with that.
I completely disagree and would vote against it.
Okay. Who would you want to have administer it?
You don't need an administrator. Every single one of these NCs already knows how to run a meeting. If they
has to have somebody to keep it in line.
Why?
That's if you.
Okay, so
Okay,
Ralph,
here
you're
we're
not gonna get a
starting
second,
because,
you're not gonna get a seconder for that, okay? All
okay,
right,
but if
that's
you know
gone.
anything about Robert's Rules of Order, there is somebody that conducts the meeting. And overall,
I'm just telling you, you're not getting a seconder for your recommendation. So
then you're
that,
gonna have a wandering discussion.
Any group of people.
let me interrupt. The point is the motion. It may turn into a wandering discussion. It may turn into an orderly meeting. That's not the point. Your recommendation to have an orderly meeting is not accepted. There's not a seconder. So we're back to the original motion, which is to have the Granada Hills Earth actively try to convene a meeting of all the neighborhood councils within Region 2 to discuss this legislation. That's the, so you
Okay,
had made a
who's calling the
recommendation, you
meeting?
want them to do,
Who's
that's not
calling the meeting?
accepted. Hmm?
Who's calling the meeting?
Because we're
That's not in the
thinking,
resolution. Do you want to make an amendment about who's to call the meeting? You tried with that, that's not, you have another recommendation.
Well,
well, okay, hold on a second. Sid, I can easily elaborate on my idea. If we're the ones that are thinking about putting this together, if we make a resolution that says Granada Hills will actively attempt uh, to open a meeting between all 8 NCs in Region 2, and Granada Hills will conduct the meeting and elect chairs from the participants, that's fine enough.
I agree with that.
Okay, so that's an
It
amendment.
shows leadership.
No, it's just a representation. That's all.
So not only actively attempt to facilitate a meeting, but also will act as what is Granada Hills Neighborhood Council going to act as? See, I don't think a lot of neighborhood councils will like that. Okay, that's the Granada Hills is going to pick
Well,
over.
all Granada Hills North wants to do is, all I'm saying is we want to establish a meeting, and we
Yeah.
will elect, if we can get a meeting established in which we all agree to
Okay,
send
okay, I
representatives,
understand. Okay,
we'll elect
Granada
the,
Hills
we'll elect
will
the administration.
will appoint delegates.
Right.
Okay, to this meeting, to this conference. Okay, all right. Now I understand.
You know, it probably should be very general. If we were able to do that, we would be able to establish this as a regular thing that can be called whenever there is an issue that we would like to address as a neighborhood council's issue. I think I think that would be the most groundbreaking thing that the NCs have ever done.
I believe that is correct. Yes, I agree with that.
Okay, so you're in favor of that concept. So if a meeting is convened, then Granada Hills will appoint delegates to the meeting. Okay,
Each council will appoint delegates.
okay. Each council, not just Granada Hill, each council will appoint delegates. How about voting delegates?
Correct.
Okay, voting delegates to this meeting. Okay. And then when they can set their own rules when they get there. Okay. Is that okay?
That would be the
Yes.
first agenda item.
Sounds like you're approaching Robert's Rules again. Okay, that's good.
Okay, so that's passed. Let's move on. Code of conduct, which I totally against. Okay, let it go on. It's going to be foisted on us. So I understand there's grievance panels now being formed and all kinds of stuff like that. Ryan, is that correct?
Yeah, grievance panels have already been formed, but not every council has sent representatives to it. Dunn is still asking for those, and so I know that we just appointed me for Granada Hills. I know that Glenn is there from Northridge East, but I think there are still. I don't think there's a representative from Porter Ranch. I don't think there's a representative from Granada Hills South. and I can't tell you about the rest. I think there is from Northridge West, but there's still councils that are not participating in this situation. Now, is it a good idea or a bad idea? I think it's a good idea. Uh, I'm with you on the code of conduct. I think that should be very, very, very limited. But, uh, but unfortunately, everybody, again, we're getting back to the same as our first discussion. Everybody is panicking here. They don't know how to handle code of conduct issues. And, I guess I would have to agree that there has to be some rules to live by. They have them in the city council, they have them in the state, they have them in the federal government. You you know you may be able to use harsh words from time to time, but your code of conduct is there. You have to follow certain rules of decorum. And maybe that what they should say is code of conduct is the wrong word. Maybe they should change that to decorum.
Well,
Well,
that's used to that.
Well, what I see going on today in politics, if you look at the Congress, they've censured a number of people, and it's basically the body itself that's doing it.
Correct.
Okay, so I think any censure, anything should be done by the body, okay, not by somebody else's arbitrary rules, okay, because the body itself can be very bad or very good, but the way things work is you need a certain majority. I think you should have a certain number to censure people. It should be 2/3 rather than a majority, but that's
Well,
another.
Sid, this is another issue that the NCs should get together and discuss.
Okay. Okay, so we could add that to the first thing, that there could be a meeting to discuss two major issues present now, the code of conduct and the return to in-person meetings. Is that acceptable?
That is
Yes.
to me. As long as you keep Dunn out and the city attorney out,
No,
and
they're not there.
Exactly.
I haven't mentioned that.
I mean, they all have a part in this at some point. But I think
They
the
want it.
NCs, going back to Ralph's position, the NCs should invoke their individuality and allow them to communicate with each other to come up with some ideas that they can live by.
Okay, so that'll be the second our motion. Okay, we're down to the last bit of is discussion of possible action regarding Whiteman Airport. That I was reading the wrong thing. That's by Monica Rodriguez again, but this time Nuri Martinez, and they want to close the airport because of safety considerations. And I've been to a number of meetings where nobody wants to close the airport except Monica Rodriguez and Beautify Arleta.
This is all beautiful. Beautify Arleta's efforts.
So, and the reality is Whiteman Airport is probably the last regional airport where anything can happen. All the other airports are closing down basically. And Van Nuys has turned into a private jet airport, because I did not understand they raised the fee so much at Van Nuys Airport that nobody can fly in there. So unless you're flying a commercial jet into the airport.
Van Nuys is a commercial jet airport. There's no public transportation and there's no public safety operations going on there. When the military pulled out of there, that became strictly a commercial airport. Now, what other airports are around? There's Santa Monica, which may be closing down in the near future, and you've got Whiteman. Burbank is never going to be housing emergency services. So if you eliminate Whiteman, you eliminate any reasonable emergency services from this community. It doesn't exist. They'd have to come from John Wayne or something. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Ralph, get your hand up.
I agree. I mean, I would not want to close Whiteman.
So our resolution is we oppose this, the closing of Whiteman, for the safety and well-being of the San Fernando Valley and surroundings. Whiteman Airport is essential, and we oppose the resolution to close the airport.
Yeah, I agree. Think about it for a second. There's no other airport close by. Not even going out towards, you have to go all the way out to Palmdale.
Well, what you also have is that's where the county emergency crew operates out of.
Correct. That's what I'm saying.
So I'm saying again, for safety and the welfare of the San Fernando Valley and the surroundings, that we oppose this resolution. Okay. That okay?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. And I was talking to Brian before, the number 10 is I'm very concerned about all these councilmen being going to jail, taking bribes. You know, even our own councilman ended up in jail. And I don't see anything being done about it. There's no
I
concern.
wish to clarify that. Our past councilman.
Past councilman, okay. Don't worry, our present councilman was considered at one time as well, but I'm going to skip that. Anyway, I think the body politic is very corrupt. Again, you're dealing with billions and billions of dollars, and these people want their share of it. They're not acting as public servants, as I said. And
so many closed bids and things of that
so
nature.
I'm just looking here in the committee. Does anybody have any ideas about what we can do? Is there anything we can do?
All we can do is talk.
No?
This is an issue that there's no action that I can think of that we can expect to have implemented. We have no authority to suggest.
Do you think of any action that may or may not be implemented? Any idea? I think we should be open to any crazy idea that you think.
The only thing we can do is advertise our thoughts and maybe even talk to news media or something like that. But we have to be careful of that too.
Well, we have to be careful of how we treat people because, again, decorum falls in here.
We're talking about any ideas. How are we going to? Do we have any idea of how to stop corruption? You know, do we want to appoint a special district attorney to investigate what's going on?
Well, the only thing I would recommend, at least at the moment, is that the Ethics Commission be given greater authority to evaluate elected officials on a regular basis.
Well, what kind of authority would you like them to have?
Continuous basis.
Well, what kind of authority do you want them to have? What would you give them?
I think they should have I think they should have the right to request certain investigative operations on a regular basis, so that if they were to request bank statements, if they were to request information on the people that they're meeting with on a regular basis, or file reports on meetings of various and sundry different types of industries that they meet with. I think
perhaps we should.
So let me get this. Stop. Let me get all these ideas down. I don't know if they're going to be accepted, but let's get them down. Bank statements. What else?
Control of secret meetings.
Transcripts of meetings.
Okay, transcripts of meetings. And how about a log of?
Yeah, a log of meetings. That would be, just whatever would. And believe me, we can put out a dozen concepts here, and they'll find a way around every one of them.
Well, let's let them do that. But I think the more I disagree. The more we put forward suggestions. One of your suggestions I had in mind too, that they would have to report any transaction over $1,000. My son didn't think it was a good idea because You really think they're going to put money in their bank if they take a bribe or anything that you're going to be able to say? I said, I think sometimes they might. You know, Jesse Smollett wrote a check to his people that he said beat him up. You know, that they were not always dealing with very clever, and they're crooks. They may not be clever all the time. So I
Crooks
just
are clever, but not smart.
Well, wait a minute. Many of the people in the upper part of government are lawyers.
That doesn't make them smart. Just makes them lawyers.
So we have bank statements, transcripts of meetings, logs of meetings. What you mentioned something else?
Are they following the Brown Act? You know, that type of thing.
Well, this would all come under the Brown Act, but
That's
what
right.
sort of authority? Do you want money to be put aside for the Ethics Commission to have investigators?
Yes.
You want something like that? Or?
That comes, I'm afraid that comes later, but there's no money to put aside anywhere right now.
Okay. Well, there's money to put aside for lots of things.
Isn't that the problem?
The governor wants to put money aside to make California an abortion refuge, so and pay for everything. So there's
that's
money.
the whole problem. They don't want to put money aside, so that controls the whole situation.
Well, if there's enough people saying we want money put aside, maybe they'll listen or they'll lose their jobs. That's my concern.
Then we should require that money should be able to be put aside.
Well,
I know.
the money side of this is difficult, very difficult.
No, I'm saying, but I think a grassroots uprising against this corruption is what's needed. Otherwise, they're just going to rob us blind. As I told you before, this is just a big money laundering scheme, and occasionally they get caught. Occasionally they get caught. I don't want that to happen. See, I tried many years ago to say that they couldn't vote on any issue that they received $100 for. Okay, from a union or anything, never went anywhere.
That'd be good. Then there would be no voting happening, and that would be the best of all.
Or there would be no gifts taken, you know. Anyway, so would you want us to make a resolution that we want the Ethics Commission to have a broader authority to investigate behavior of elected officials and appointed officials, including but not restricted to bank statements, transcripts of meetings, logs of meetings, okay, something like that?
Yep,
yes.
I would agree with that.
Okay,
For
so
all
I'll try to get those
elected.
resolutions written up. Any comments or announcements?
I think we got it.
No, but going back just for a second, I would make that for all electeds.
Okay.
Well, how about the managers? I mean, you got the same thing, appointed managers.
Well,
The elected guy doesn't do it, he appoints somebody else to do it, and there you are.
You can't ask the Ethics Commission to investigate every single person who's in any management position.
I'm saying managers, general managers.
There's way too many managers. Look, the Ethics Commission right now is a year behind in their investigations just on elections. There's no way that they have enough personnel to handle that. That has to be handled through the electeds themselves. They have to control that.
Okay, so we're restricted right now to all elected officials, all elected and appointed officials.
Yeah, and appointed, true.
Yes.
All right, so that's acceptable?
To me.
Yes.
Okay, so it passes. Now, the board member announcements. Anything to announce?
I can't think of anything.
Ralph?
I have nothing to bring forward.
Well, I've already announced that I had a grandchild, so
that's good.
Number 9.
Number 9.
Baseball team now.
Yeah, you now got to. I only have 5, Sid.
Oh, well. I think I had more kids than you.
Yeah, probably have a couple of years on me too.
I think so. But I won't brag. I won't tell you about that. Okay, I'm gonna adjourn the meeting and turn off the speak the sound. Is that okay?
Yes,
You got
well,
it.
we have to find out what's going on that I can't show there.
I don't know. You're talking to the wrong person. Okay.
Maybe
Ralph,
we have,
there's a possibility. It's a setting. You might want to talk to Oscar. From time to time, the settings that
or
they have
Gibson.
on these webinars either allow for cameras or don't allow for cameras. And I don't know why I'd have it and you wouldn't, but that's one possibility. The other possibility is that your system doesn't have its camera actually on, or at least
Well,
in
it has
conjunction
in the
with this.
past. Uh, Maybe what we have to do is, I dealt with Gibson and he got me going on a lot of the stuff that I needed to do. And I found he was a very knowledgeable person. Maybe we should contact him and see if we can get
You can
some
try
help there.
him. What kind of a machine do you have, Ralph?
An Apple,
You have an Apple?
an old one, yes.
Uh, that probably has some uh, protocols that may not be compatible. And you also told me that you
No,
were
no,
running.
no. I have been in meetings with this in the past.
I understand, but the settings change from time to time that are being presented here with this webinar. Dunn is constantly sending out updates on the Zoom settings, and uh, unfortunately, the NCs are listening to Dunn. They don't have to. They shouldn't. They don't have to use a webinar. They can use a Zoom meeting, but everybody thinks that Dunn has full control over them and that they have to do what Dunn says, and it's absolutely untrue. But the fact is, it may be a protocol that is happening. You also mentioned the other day that you're using Linux. Uh,
Yes.
I don't know how you use Linux on a Apple, but if you
No,
are doing
no,
that,
no. I use it on my home computer, not this one.
okay, so this is a different computer than you were using when you had videos. So there probably is
No,
a
I had
setting.
this meeting when I had plum meetings, etc. This worked beautifully.
Were they on a webinar or were they on a Zoom meeting?
Soon.
Well, you're on a webinar now. No, I'm just telling you, Ralph, that it could be a
That's the
lot of
problem.
things.
I joined this as a Zoom meeting.
No, you joined this as a webinar.
Okay,
I,
so I'm gonna now
Okay,
that
we're not going to solve your problem tonight. I'm just telling you there's a lot of different
okay.
things that could go wrong.
So
That's
I
all.
adjourn the meeting. What time is it? 8:06. Okay.
Okay, I got to get over to
Good luck. I have to
Wichita.
finish off my work for today. I'm still behind. Okay.
There you go. Talk to you guys later.
Thank you,
Bye bye.
Ralph. Bye bye.
I have to find out webinar because I don't know if a webinar is on every meetings in the past or has been a Zoom meeting. And
Ralph, it's a webinar in the Zoom environment. Right? It's done by Zoom, but there are two different types of Zoom. There's a webinar and just a plain Zoom meeting.